The following is a CNN special report.
I happen to be the most powerful man in American broadcasting.
There really was no preparation. It was spontaneous.
Carson was the show. Dave created the anti-show.
David Letterman!
I have more memories of the Letterman show than of my own life from at that time.
Before Kimmel,
Ben Affleck!
Conan,
It's from the champ.
Seth, or Fallon, there was Dave. The king of quips,
Hi and welcome to the damn show.
stupid pet tricks, and outrageous pranks.
It's hard to say what his influence is not.
But behind the scenes, it wasn't all laughs.
He was devastated. He was devastated.
NBC has no use for you people. Wash up and get out.
Whoa, hello, this is blackmail.
A late-night legend signs off.
What this means now is that Paul and I can be married.
A CNN special report, David Letterman says goodnight.
I still have to do things like answer viewer mail letters, and here's one we received.
Viewer mail.
Dear David begins, what's the deal with the sneakers? Well, we decided that this letter should be answered in person.
David Letterman's trademark bit. It was 1986, and Steve O'Donnell was a writer for Dave's show.
If we would get a letter that seemed provocative enough, we would seek them out.
I think this is the house right here.
Just one example of how Dave changed the game.
Let's go on up and see if Colleen is home. Let me just ring the bell here. Doesn't appear that anyone's home.
5 years into its run on NBC, Late Night with David Letterman was both clever and unconventional.
Could you show us around the place and maybe show us some of your sister's stuff? What, a closet? Yeah.
The brother showed up, and he showed us the girl's room,
Let's take a look at her footwear. There's a lot of high-heeled shoes.
and then took us to where she worked at the mall.
Are you Colleen Boyle? Come here now.
And that was a kind of model for spontaneous kind of guerrilla TV making.
At the time, that was electric.
Conan O'Brien could barely believe it.
That just wasn't something you ever saw. The idea of Johnny Carson going into someone's house. Dave, you have to remember, he was wearing like the pleated pants and the Adidas. It was all coming at it from a completely different angle.
I think he mowed her lawn.
I think he did, yeah. The idea that he had walked out of the TV and into someone's room and was going through their stuff had a huge impact on me.
A huge impact on pop culture, comedy, and all the shows that would come after his. Not bad for a boy next door from Indianapolis, Indiana. His dad, Harry, was a florist. His mom, Dorothy, a church secretary. His mother later wrote a cookbook filled with photos of Dave and his two sisters. An all-American family who loved a good laugh and watching television.
Our household was full of Arthur Godfrey productions.
These boys don't do anything. They just sit in those chairs and keep warm.
And I can just remember being fascinated by when they would open the television part of the simulcast. There was something about the microphone and the earphones and the equipment that I found fascinating.
Dave was a good ball player, but at Broad Ripple High School, not a great student.
I can remember doing so poorly, my mom was very upset about it, and she said, we're going to try to get you into a trade school. I was not able to keep up. And then one semester I took a public speaking course, and I realized, oh, this might be my lifeline. I might be able to turn this into doing something.
At Ball State University, Dave turned it into his major.
He decided to be a speech major in college.
Author Bill Carter has covered the TV industry for more than 25 years.
He wasn't a student or anything. He just joined the radio station. Then he comes out of college. He becomes a local weatherman and goofy weatherman.
The higher-ups have removed the border between Indiana and Ohio, making it one giant state. Personally, I'm against it. When a tropical storm became a hurricane, I would wish her well. And they didn't like that sort of thing, because later it would go on to destroy millions and millions of dollars of property.
Dave wasn't exactly suited for news, but He was suited for comedy. So, at 21 years old, he married his college sweetheart, Michelle Cook, and headed out to Hollywood.
She was a steady, lovely girl, apparently. Totally supportive of him, you know, his dreams at that point. A lot of people didn't even know he had a first marriage. But he said he behaved badly right away because these young girls were so smitten with him.
As Dave began building an audience on LA's stand-up circuit, his marriage fell apart.
I just got back from Reno. Stayed in really a cheap condominium. Had a cheap jacuzzi, though, because when everybody got in the water, we had to take turns going...
In 1975, Dave talked about the struggles of stand-up.
So you go to the Comedy Store and you do real well. And you get done and you're pretty excited for about 5 or 10 minutes and you think, wait a minute, I just made 80 drunk people laugh.
What was new about his voice?
He was ironic, I think, is the main thing. He had a sort of a detachment. He was very cool and verbal.
By 1978, he hit the big time.
Here's Johnny!
A guest spot with his longtime idol.
If your dog is constipated, why screw up a good thing, huh?
He was the biggest star in television, and I was just a kid who had kind of followed the beacon of his light coming out of Burbank. And to be on his show was endlessly nerve-wracking.
There was a fire in Laurel Canyon not too long ago, and I lost like an entire set of dishes, you know. Well, you know how paper burns. And,
just like that.
But Johnny Carson fell hard for Dave.
There's always a former house. Nobody buys an original house out here.
Yeah.
Formerly owned by Dorothy Lamore's cousin or something.
Yeah,
but
I think Squeaky Frome used to live in the place I got.
You got Squeaky's old place, huh?
They could really banter. He became a protege, which, you know, was hard to do with Johnny.
I have a feeling from your shot on this show tonight, you're going to be working a lot outside the Comedy Store.
Thank you.
And after just a few appearances, Dave went from guest...
Johnny's guest host tonight is David Letterman.
...to guest host, and became a network favorite.
It's the David Letterman Show live.
NBC execs were so smitten, in 1980, Dave got his own morning talk show. Veteran TV director Hal Gurney.
It wasn't fun to begin with. There was no room to do musical acts. Anybody who came in, it was like a sitcom. People come in through a door.
Also, our very own staff member Rich Hall with a gardening hint will be here.
It was wildly inappropriate for his style.
When we return, a devastating blow for David Letterman.
Mr. Letterman was sure we were doomed, like it was the end of everything.
David Letterman!
That's David Letterman, hosting a live morning talk show in 1980.
Make the thing make noises for us. Now, first of all, why do you have this stuff?
And this was one of the few people who was watching.
Everything about it was arresting.
An electronic wizard.
Conan O'Brien, then in high school.
And it's very hard to explain that to people today. This guy was 180 degrees different from anything you had seen in that kind of format.
Would you like a tissue?
The whole thing felt wrong/perfect.
Maybe perfect for Conan, but a poor fit for the time slot. After 4 months, David Letterman was canceled. He thought his career was over.
He was about as devastated as you could be. I think he remained for a lot of his career consumed with self-doubt.
But NBC brass had other plans for Dave.
Come on, everybody out!
In 1982, Dave landed Late Night, airing at 12:30 a.m., right after his hero, Johnny Carson.
I love what you've done with the rec room. It's very nice.
A dream job, and a time slot so late, he really could do anything he wanted on air.
Right over there is the Today Show.
This primetime program was my idea, and I'm not wearing pants.
It was a completely unique talk show, infused with Dave's sarcasm.
America's favorite summertime pastime, destruction by gravity.
And wacky stunts.
Throwing stuff up buildings. I just remember my friends and I watching that and thinking this is the greatest thing ever.
The turkey is a flightless bird. I don't think so.
brand new territory for a talk show. Dave broke. He smashed the fourth wall, turning to his own team for inspiration.
Biff, what happened? What do you do with the jacket when I'm done with it?
I just added to the big ball of sports coats.
Do you have any questions?
Paul, good question. How exactly do you get out of there?
There really was no preparation. It was spontaneous.
We're just going to bust him.
I love Paul. He always has kind of the perfect reaction. And I love the rhythm that they have together.
Here he is again, folks. What's his name? No, it's Paul.
Band leader and sidekick, Paul Schaefer.
You're giving me the one-name treatment
What's
now?
that? What's
just
that?
Paul?
First shows, I didn't, have anything to say. So I inserted myself, and just one day started talking. And Dave got a kick out of it.
You know, Paul, I used to do weather on TV.
You did?
Back
That's funny, because I used to be a swimsuit model.
He said, yeah, hey, that was great. After the show, he said, do more of that.
I've watched Johnny Carson. And you are no Johnny Carson.
Sometimes we had a bigger audience than The Tonight Show.
And then he started a routine with you where he would talk to you during the show.
Hal? Hal? Hal?
Hilarious and innovative. Everyone was along for the ride. There was guest cam and monkey cam.
They had a 360-degree show once where the show slowly over the course of the hour rotated. That was ridiculous.
We have achieved 180 degrees. Absolutely.
They did a show on a plane, and I felt almost like it was somehow for me, like the heavens had opened up.
Letterman fanboy, Jimmy Kimmel.
There's a picture I've seen from your 18th birthday. And what was the cake?
Late Night with David Letterman. My mom made the cake. My mom had a Letterman jacket made for me, like the ones they had on the show. They didn't sell those. I played no sports, and yet I wore a Letterman jacket to high school every day. My license plate said L8NITE. It was the most formative thing in my young life.
Please, clear the hallway. You and the Tide, beat it, will you? Thank you.
It just seemed like such a waste of network television time. I loved it. They started a new kind of humor.
Get off the elevator. I'm serious. And here's one of the smaller offices right there.
Carson had some rules that we weren't supposed to break. So the request was that Dave shouldn't talk to an announcer and Dave shouldn't do an opening monologue. I just remember thinking, that's it? That's all the things we don't have to do? Well, that leaves everything.
Writer Meryl Marco was the brains behind much of Late Night. She and Dave were involved professionally and romantically for a decade.
Everything that I found in the phone book that had made any kind of a claim, I would go and ask them about it. Like if they said just bulbs, I would go, and what else do you have?
Then she'd send Dave there to harass them.
Okay, so besides bulbs, what do you have here?
Nothing.
What can you get in here?
What can you get in here? Probably shades.
Marco developed many of Dave's trademark segments.
Weirdly, I think I'm ground zero for dog videos.
My God, I just hope they don't let him drive after this.
That led to stupid pet tricks.
Played that.
Stupid human tricks. And viewer mail.
Letter number one.
My dream job was to work for David Letterman.
In 1985, Conan O'Brien tried to get a job as a writer on the show.
It was between me and one other guy from Oklahoma, trying to be a mass murderer, but a very prolific mass murderer. And they went with the other guy, and I was crushed.
I had a dizzy dozen years. Craziest job I ever had.
Steve O'Donnell, though not a mass murderer, got one of those coveted writing gigs.
I mean, there's the exhilaration of being like a cult college dorm type show, but it wasn't necessarily clear that it would go on for a long, long time.
Go ahead. O'Donnell and the team came up with most of Dave's crazy get-ups.
We have 3,400 Alka-Seltzer tablets on this fine piece of clothing.
We did a bunch of stunt-like suits that were partly inspired by Steve Alley.
I got the suit of chips on here, and when I come out, I'll pass among you folks. Just snack your brains out.
And crafted Dave's classic top 10 lists.
On the first one, top 10 words that almost rhyme with peas.
And the number one word that almost rhymes with peas, according to our poll, is meats.
Yes, that was supposed to be absurd.
2, 1, ignition. Off the charts absurd, but arguably Dave's funniest material, were his remotes, pranks outside the studio.
I just want to ask you a couple of questions. What do you do for a living? I'm a mailman. Do me a favor. Get into the fountain. Get into it? Come on, get in. If you get fired, I'll get you a job. All right, now just get in. Come on.
No one knew who he was because he was this guy on at 12:30 at night. And I do remember where a lady suddenly went, "Wait a second, I know you."
That's right, I'm Chevy Chase. Nice to see you.
You mean we need authorization to drop off a fruit basket?
Dave began taking remotes to a whole new level when he mocked his own network.
Oh, this is going to be fun to work with these people, isn't it? To drop off a fruit basket, you need paperwork.
When he did the famous thing when GE took over and he brings a gift basket to them, the guy wouldn't shake his hand.
Nice to meet you. What is your name?
I'm going to ask you to turn the cameras off, please.
Okay,
Did you feel like you were disobeying the bosses, especially when GE bought NBC?
Oh, absolutely. That was an important ingredient. We were all on the same side against the board.
Right over there, Mr. Gurney.
They took it personally.
I think, he hurt his own future that way. Here's Dave who wants to succeed, Johnny Carson, more than anything.
Dave, don't move body and driveway until...
Here's the people who are going to make the decision about, and you are alienating them?
You bet it's a GE.
David Letterman!
But the audience loved Dave. After a year on the air, he was everywhere. Late Night, once a cult hit, became must-see TV. But Dave never relaxed.
Having been canceled once, he felt another cancellation was imminent. He just felt like there was an axe over his head. He was waiting for it to drop.
Ahead, the axe drops. The war for late night.
It's Biff. Can I speak to you a second?
Will you people leave me alone? This is an experiment, damn it. The stuff on the right side is tingling. It's tingling. You know what that means? It's working. That's what that means.
David Letterman could seemingly find humor anywhere.
There you go. Oh, God. Look who's here.
And by the late 80s, all the cool kids wanted to hang with Dave, including fellow comic Jay Leno, who had come up with Letterman doing stand-up in the 70s.
I'm not the kind of guy to brag, certainly.
Leno was our dream guest. Whatever else was going on in some week or month, we'd go, well, we got Leno next Thursday.
It led to Jay getting the job as the permanent substitute host for Johnny because he was so good with Dave.
There's Jay Leno!
We could get in a two-shot here. We could actually send the crew home.
Movie stars wanted in with Dave, too, but they got no special treatment.
Go ahead and turn the pig on.
Please welcome Cher.
He was suspicious of celebrity. Famously when Cher went on, he's not being the friendly, you're the greatest, you're the best, I love you, you're fantastic, you're Cher. He's prodding.
Why, finally, after nearly 4.5 years, did you decide to come on?
I thought that I would never want to do this show with you.
Now, why? Why? Because you thought I was
an ass.
And it was like this electric moment. No one called Carson an asshole. First of all, if you did, you would disappear from the face of the earth.
Dave was on a roll. And then, in 1992, a shocking announcement. Carson was stepping down.
I bid you a very heartfelt good night.
To many, Dave, after a decade of smash hit shows, seemed the heir apparent, and joked with Johnny about it months before.
Would I like to have the show? Oh, sure, yeah.
That's honest. I'd like to be looking at new upholstery now,
Dave was all ready to inherit his hero's chair and his time slot.
That's what he was working for all those years, to do The Tonight Show.
But unbeknownst to Dave and the rest of the world, NBC executives had another comedian in mind.
When did it become clear to Dave that he was not going to get this dream job?
They came to New York to talk to him, and we love you, and we want to keep you where you are. And he just says, well, that's unacceptable, and I want out of my contract, and walks out of the room.
Making it even worse, the comic NBC favored was Jay Leno, who Dave had helped boost to success.
You ever tell a little white lie and it gets you into a lot of trouble?
Bill Carter wrote a best-selling book about the battle for late night, and he says NBC execs had doubts about Letterman.
They thought, oh, it's, he's so experimental. Can he do the Tonight Show format? And in Jay, they had a guy who would do anything. Anything they asked, times 10. And they looked at that and said, why can't we have both? We'll give Leno the Tonight, and we'll keep Dave.
Hey, freeze!
But Dave would have none of it. And public jostling for the Tonight Show went on for months.
You know, we were on at 12:30. We did okay. We did pretty well. I guess it was just this odd dynamic. NBC and myself, Jay Leno and myself, and you had like an ongoing soap opera. And then politics of it, the strategy of it, the big guy, the little guy, the one guy didn't get the job, the other guy did.
Ultimately, Leno got the gig.
Now, why would someone claim to be a prostitute?
Dave was crushed.
He was devastated. He was devastated. There's a lot of people who say Jay was this wild, creative comic and decided to become a mainstream comic. And Jay calculated very smartly what you need to do. If you think about a late night show at 11:30, Jay wanted to win. It played out in an interesting way. Dave didn't play the game. Jay got the show.
You're lovely. All right, enjoy yourselves. I'll be right back.
Dave's relationship with NBC became fractured. But all the other networks came a-courting.
We went to Los Angeles once and had these meetings with these people, and I think that what made the real difference is they would bring in plates of fresh fruit, and it was first-rate produce. And I think that
impressed you.
Not me, but I think that impressed every other bonehead that came in. You know.
Ultimately, he gets the most powerful agent in Hollywood to represent him.
Yeah, that's where Ovitz came up with this idea that if it doesn't play it at 11:30, there's a $50 million penalty. That's how they got around that. CBS said, well, we're going to make you the signature star of the network. I mean, you're going to be the guy for us.
Coming up, Dave rolls the dice.
He was worried about going to a new venue. The CBS thing was a kind of a gamble.
I checked this now with the CBS attorneys, and legally I can continue to call myself Dave. This morning, I wake up, and next to me in bed is the head of a peacock, so I don't know.
Broadway's Ed Sullivan Theater.
It's a marvelous, wonderful edifice, and we couldn't be happier to be here.
August 1993.
The thing that spooked Dave more than anything else was the double balcony, and it was enormous.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful program tonight. Bill Murray, Billy Joel.
Dave's first night on a new network.
Welcome to old Broadway, baby.
In a new time slot. When the dust of the late night wars settled, Jay Leno had The Tonight Show and Dave had a multi-million-dollar deal with CBS. It was a risky move.
CBS did not have anything in their history of late night. So Letterman comes on. His first couple of months on the air was absolute can't-miss television.
It's a joke, okay?
It's me, you jerk.
Every single night. He just killed it.
What is wrong with you? Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a promo. This is the actual show.
Dave amped up his monologue.
Hey, how you doing?
And added more A-list guests.
Would you like me to do a dance for you?
Such as Drew Barrymore, who gave Dave an unforgettable birthday present.
Oh, my God.
We had Madonna on, one of my favorite reaction shots. And Madonna, for some reason, thought it'd be funny if she used the F word over and over and over again. And it got tiresome.
Actually, I brought something to, make a point.
All right, okay, good.
You are always with me on the show.
And in the middle of all this, the F words, there was an elderly woman and her husband sitting in the audience. And I had a shot of her, and I got a big, big laugh.
Turn the volume down immediately. She can't be stopped. There's something wrong with
Non-stop laughs. Yet writer Steve O'Donnell says Dave never thought he was good enough.
I think it could be painful to people close to him. I have saved dozens of little notes he would write during the show, and they alternated between I hate myself and stand by show, and he would underline stand by show.
Even as he worried about his own success on CBS, Dave paid it forward, just as Carson had done for him.
You better be as good as Letterman. I'll give it a shot. All right, we should maybe put him away.
Conan O'Brien was a virtual unknown when he replaced Dave on NBC's Late Night.
I was being pummeled to death on television every night.
Hey, Jared!
I'd only been on the air just a couple of months, and Dave came on as a guest. And that was a huge deal.
When I first got this job, I came here to 30 Rock.
How did you get this job, by the way?
So, always indebted to him for that.
Would you care for a free taco?
Dave delivered everywhere he went, and for a couple years he was golden. Going head-to-head with his old pal at NBC at 11:30 and winning.
From the NBC studios in Burbank.
That is, until a shocking celebrity scandal in 1995.
Question number one.
A gigantic get when Leno landed Hugh Grant after the actor's arrest for soliciting a prostitute.
What the hell were you thinking?
That epic interview, plus NBC's monster primetime hits and Leno's own fine-tuning of the show, took a toll on Letterman's Late Show.
It really hurt Letterman, I think. And it became extremely difficult struggle for him to counter all that momentum at NBC.
If you want to influence congressmen, you got to send them full beer cans. See, that's not...
Jay Leno went on to win the ratings wars for 15 years. Gradually, Dave made peace with it.
He was more comfortable as the hipper, slightly skewed show with a slightly skewed attitude than being at number one.
It doesn't matter what the ratings are. It really doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, Dave is the best there ever was. Dave started something.
In 2000, Dave showed a much softer side. After emergency heart bypass surgery and 5 weeks off the air, he returned, giving a touching tribute to the hospital staff who helped him.
These men and women right here saved my life, and
When Dave shows his human side, it's a real treat. You're like, oh, what's going on here? Who is this person we didn't know?
The episode earned an Emmy nomination. A year later, days after September 11th, Dave couldn't hold back his emotions.
we're told that they were zealots fueled by religious fervor.
I was in the makeup room with him. He was pacing and figuring out what he was going to say.
And if you live to be 1,000 years old, will that make any sense to you? Will that make any goddamn sense?
Dave was the first late-night host back on air.
He made it okay to start laughing again.
Fatherhood also changed him. In 2003, he and girlfriend Regina Lasko had a son, Harry, named after Dave's late father.
It's been really sweet to get to see these big moments in his life, from his heart surgery to the birth of his son. And then I think as he's gotten older, we got to know him a little bit.
Your life doesn't really begin in the important ways until you've had a child.
When we come back, a cheating scandal turns Dave's world upside down.
I have a little story that I would like to tell you and the home viewers as well. Do you feel like a story?
Thank you very much for being on the program again. You know, it's been 3 years since the last time you were on the show, and I will just say right off the top here, you look different than I remember you.
The Late Show, January 2009.
Joaquin Phoenix was acting crazy.
What do you have them on?
I'm sorry?
What do you gas them up with?
It was like watching a surgeon, a really good surgeon. It was better than that. It wasn't even a surgeon. It was just watching a maestro.
What can you tell us about your days with the Unabomber?
He told you without specifically telling you that he thought that person was a nut. For me, when I see somebody on the show, I have a pretty good idea of whether he's going to like them or not. And it really influences me. If he likes them, I like them. And if he doesn't like them, they're idiots.
And Joaquin, I'm sorry you couldn't be here tonight.
More than 25 years in the biz, and Dave still nailed it. And when Jay Leno left The Tonight Show a few months later,
We have just 2 more shows left to do, you know?
Dave crushed his competition for the first time in more than a decade.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien. Thank you.
There was much drama over at NBC with Conan O'Brien getting The Tonight Show and then Leno wresting it back from him.
Good to be home.
In 2012, Dave and Conan joked about the late-night mess, both of them deprived of their Tonight Show dreams by a scheming Jay Leno.
He's getting a live feed in a satellite truck right now. He is watching every second.
And it was kind of like, here are two guys, very successful, nobody should feel bad for them, but they've both kind of been through the same hellish experience because of this other guy.
Yeah. It was one of those nice, it was a nice moment that comes along every now and then where everything lines up.
What about your relationship with Jay? Because you knew Jay before he demanded that he get his show back.
I was assured none of this would come up tonight.
Dave was leading the late-night pack when a joke about Sarah Palin's daughter fell flat.
One awkward moment for Sarah Palin at the Yankee game. During the 7th inning, her daughter was knocked up by Alex Rodriguez.
Adding fuel to the fire, Dave had messed up and targeted the wrong daughter.
He took shots at the daughter. I think a lot of people in politics think that's over the line.
I told a bad joke. I told a joke that was beyond flawed.
But that joke was nothing compared to what came next that year.
I have a little story that I would like to tell you and the home viewers as well.
The 62-year-old host confessed to a cheating scandal soon after he and longtime girlfriend Regina Lasco had tied the knot.
This was an embarrassing thing to admit because it wasn't just it's kind of an open secret that he'd had some relationships with some women who worked on the show.
Yes, and people on the show were aware of that. I don't think people were aware of this one.
Dave's shocking confession drew applause.
I have had sex with women who work for me on this show. Now, my response to that is, yes, I have. I have had sex with women who work on this show.
Dave's confession came after an extortion attempt by a CBS producer who demanded millions to keep hush Dave's affairs with staffers.
And would it be embarrassing if it were made public? Perhaps it would. Perhaps it would. Especially for the women.
The fact that he has an affair, probably that's conventional, but then the guy winds up trying to blackmail him. And I think it's very, very Letterman that instead of just paying this guy off to keep it quiet, he said, no, I'm not doing that. And he went right to the cops.
I just want to thank the people at the Special Prosecution Bureau and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office.
And this is a guy who hates humiliation, hates it.
The CBS producer pleaded guilty to attempted grand larceny and spent 4 months in jail. A week after the scandal, Dave apologized to his wife on air.
My wife, Regina, she has been horribly hurt by my behavior. And when something happens like that, if you hurt a person and it's your responsibility, you try to fix it. So let me tell you, folks, I got my work cut out for me.
Dave called this the lowest point in his life. The couple did reconcile, and they are still together.
Talk about electric television. It's just television like nothing else you've ever seen.
His ratings went up.
His ratings went up for that. But, you know, his ratings have never recovered much from the early days because he's always been playing from behind. And at some point, I think he stopped feeling like he could win.
Coming up, Dave. Say It Ain't So.
So I was goofing around with my son, Harry, and I said, Harry, what if I retire? Why would you retire?
Dave and pop star Lady Gaga.
Hello, New York.
Nice to see you.
There was no stopping me, so my mom was really supportive, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I had a lot of rejection. And
when I got fired at NBC, my mom brought me here to CBS.
That was 23 years ago.
Is it weird that it's lasted this long? It's 2015.
I think it's weird in the sense that he felt it was going to be canceled all the time. I heard about that endlessly, and I would like to go back to that version of him and just go, "You! What's wrong with you? You're going to be on for the rest of your life."
Here's Johnny! Or at least longer than his idol, Johnny Carson.
I bid you a very heartfelt good night.
In 2013, David Letterman became the longest-running late-night host in show business history.
My name is Dave Letterman, the one fixed point in the ever-changing late-night sky.
Yes, indeed.
He's had more than 18,000 guests.
Howard Stern.
Many of them regulars.
Bill Murray.
A little thing right in there. Hit it again. Yeah!
Julia Roberts.
There was a time, Dave, when I asked you on a date.
Wait a minute. Turn off the cameras. Clear the audience. Turn off the cameras. Jerry Seinfeld.
Sure, I'm not going to Mexico.
You don't care. Yeah, that's right.
Why would I? Their food is already here.
Now,
after more than 30 years on air for Letterman, his younger rivals are grabbing those coveted younger viewers.
I wanna rock right now. I'm Will Smith, but I'm Jay Brown.
He's not surprising anyone at this point by being David Letterman. Like, we all know what David Letterman is. And yet he's still doing things that you absolutely have to see.
It's too damn hot. There you go.
Late Night Observer Bill Carter has been seeing signs that Dave has been winding down.
He really hasn't done any of the bits that he used to do. He doesn't even go to rehearsal. And there are people who would say he probably should have left when he was closer to the peak. But I think it's really been really hard for him.
when this show stops being fun, I will retire 10 years later.
Then last April, Letterman made a shocking reveal about a phone call he had with CBS honcho Les Moonves.
When I said, Leslie, it's been great, you've been great, the network has been great.
There was no indication until we were in the wings. Before we went on, he said, could I just, come with me? And we took me into a little alcove, and he said, I've told the guys that
I'm retiring.
This is really?
Yep.
This is true. You actually did this?
Yes, I did.
Wow. Well, do I have a minute to call my accountant? Because
wow. And then the next thing I knew, I was on stage. Well, East Coast girls are hip. What? And thinking, what did I just hear? But it was as fast as that.
But there's the bird. Look at that. Look at that animal right there.
It's beautiful, yeah.
Yep.
Dave said his epiphany came after bird watching with his son Harry and then going to do his show.
So I get home that night, and I'm talking to my wife, Regina, and she said, well, how was work? And I said, oh, well, we think we identified the bird. And she says, that's great. Who was on the show? I said, I don't remember. So that's when I started thinking in terms of how long does a guy want to do a TV show?
In 2012, Dave admitted to battling depression with medication and even with meditation. Yet a steady dose of fatherhood seems to be the most powerful elixir.
So I was goofing around with Harry, and I said, Harry, what if I retire? Then I would be able to spend more time with the family. And Harry looked at me and said, which part of the family?
Oh boy, here we go. There simply is no better man than good old David Letterman.
Thank you for everything. Thank you.
Dave's celebrity friends, however, have been less understanding.
I've had this number prepared for some time. To be honest, Dave, I wrote it for your funeral.
Believe me, you're going to have nothing to do pretty soon.
I know. This whole quitting idea is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
You're right.
Oh, my God!
And you're still an ass.
Well, I was thinking you and me, we could play some dominoes together. And
Dominoes.
Even President Obama gave Dave a heartfelt send-off.
I think Dave will have the same kind of legacy that Richard Pryor and George Carlin. I think that he's up there with those guys.
You look at all the other shows, and you see David Letterman's influence.
How are you? I love his set. We should do our show.
Yeah. Dave not being on television just doesn't feel right to me. Then that's followed up by people pointing out to me that I'm the old guy now.
You're the oldest. You're the one that's been on the longest.
Yeah, I think so. I went from who the hell is he to is he still here?
Can you envision yourself 20 years from now doing your late night show?
What the hell am I going to do with myself every day at 4 p.m.?
What about Dave? What is he going to do?
Dave loves to get laughs.
Would you boys like a table or you want to sit at the bar?
So I wouldn't count him out. I wouldn't put him on the porch.
I know Dave would be the very last person to say he was better than Johnny, but Dave is better than Johnny.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. And Arnold, seriously, thank you very much. I'm sorry about the chair. They were supposed to fix it yesterday.
I do not envy whoever they try to put in that chair.
Hope you enjoyed it. Good night, everybody.